Welcome to Get to the Hook. I'm your co-host, Charles Latibeaudiere.
And I'm your co-host, Eric Colley.
And this week, the hook is rejection. Being rejected. The hook on this is sports related. It is Shedeur Sanders, a name you heard until you were blue in the face this weekend last weekend because of the NFL draft. Of course, all you need to know, we're not talking about sports here, but what we're talking about is the fact that Shedeur was expected to be taken in the first round, didn't go until the fifth round. The Browns finally take him in the fifth round.
Yeah, wasn't he their second quarterback pick?
Yes.
The 144th pick overall.
So how does this relate to music? Well, the reality is this happens in the music world quite frequently, and labels or managers may pass on an artist and then deeply regret it, which Deion Sanders will tell you that those teams are all going to regret the fact that they passed on his son. We'll see about that.
And music-related, remember, Deion had a music career.
Did he? Oh, yeah.
That song,
it must be the money. It must be the money, which might be his response to what happened this weekend. I don't know. But yes, Deion did have a music career that was flashy and flash in the pan-ish.
Yeah.
But man, was it exciting.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he's not the guy. He's not the artist we're talking about.
No,
we're talking about
these artists should give a little bit of hope. I mean, no, music and sports are different, but some faith to Shedeur that maybe you're not chosen right away, but you can still achieve some greatness because all these acts did.
Mm-hmm. And some big acts that were. Listen, everybody evolves, right? All artists evolve, and maybe what we know now is not what they were maybe when they first got to a label, and that's why they got rejected.
Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's the label
is just dumb.
They just don't see what they've got. But all these artists we're going to talk about, they're not just successful. They were hugely successful, influential, transformative artists, and it's hard sometimes to hear the future when you're looking for a hit.
Right.
And what's going to work. If you're hearing an artist who's going to change things in the next 5 years, you don't always know that right away.
Yeah. And the reality is, like I said, as far as like them evolving, a lot of these artists, even if you think about how they started out, and even if you loved them when they started, the music they did 20, 30, in some cases, years later is very different from what they were doing originally. So,
right. So we're going to start talking about all these big artists with Brian Poole and the Tremolos.
Of course.
There's a reason.
Forget them.
There's a reason for talking about the Tremolos. They had their biggest hit in the U.S. They were a British group. The song was called Silence is Golden, hit number 11 in 1967. This is what it sounded like.
Silence is golden, but my eyes still see.
That's 1967. Yeah.
Yeah. And why are we talking about the Tremolos? Because in 1962, when they got signed to Decca Records, Decca was a huge label at the time. They had a choice between two acts to sign, the Tremolos or a little group called the Beatles. And they chose the Tremolos. And they told Brian Epstein, the Beatles manager.
Okay, I did not.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
oh my gosh.
Brian Epstein was the Beatles manager in the early 60s, and Decca told him, quote, guitar groups are on their way out. And to be fair to Decca, in 1962, they kind of were. Those late 50s rock groups were, it could have been a fad. Of course, they didn't fade out because of the Beatles, but they didn't know that. So they went with the Tremolos, and to be fair, the Tremolos, in the UK, they had 11 top 10 hits, 2 number ones. But the funny thing is, their biggest hit...
That's a good career.
That's a good career. They had a good career.
Right.
By the time Silence is Golden really hit and blew up in America, they had already moved to Epic Records and left Decca. So Decca didn't even get all the hits.
So Decca didn't even get everything from them.
They thought the Beatles were not the way to go. But again...
I don't want to name check anyone, but is there someone who was the head of Decca who actually made this decision?
There was a president. There's some debate historically now. Is he the one who did it, or was it like an assistant or somebody in like...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he tried to push it off on someone else.
It wasn't me.
He's like, well, I didn't make that call.
Yeah, so 1962, Decca could have signed the Beatles and said, nah, they're done. But these Tremolos, that's where we're going to put all of our efforts.
Put some respect on the Tremolos name, all right?
It's not a knock on the Tremolos.
Listen, the Beatles, no one could ever guess what they were gonna become. But I will say this.
Still,
I will say this. Even like early Beatles compared to what we just heard from the Tremolos, I don't know. I mean, I guess if their prognostication was that guitar bands were going out, okay.
you
Then
go with a more vocally kind of group, but just the energy of the early Beatles. How do you pass on that? And to give Decca a little bit of credit here, they did learn from their mistake. Because 1963, a year later, right as the Beatles were about to explode in America and started hitting all over Europe, Decca did decide to sign a little guitar band, the Rolling Stones. So
wow, boy, they pivoted real
they
quick.
pivoted real quick.
They're like, oh damn, we missed that Beatles thing.
But they did catch the Stones.
Find
so
me some more British guys with guitars.
It's true. Yeah, the Beatles guitar groups are on their way out. Oh, nope, they're on their way back in. They're on their way back in. And they snagged the second biggest. So it worked out all right for everybody involved, I guess. But they passed on the Beatles.
Wow.
That was a mistake.
All right. Well, they recovered, sort of.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Which was more than we can say for this next label. So just a couple weeks ago, we talked about RSO Records, the Robert Stigwood organization. It was the Robert Stigwood was the manager of the Bee Gees, Andy Gibb. They had Eric Clapton signed in the 70s. And of course, RSO is the label that released the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack,
That's
the
where
Grease soundtrack.
Yep. That's where I first saw the RSO logo. Was probably on either the Saturday Night Saturday Night Fever LP or the Grease LP.
It was like a little piggy bank. Or a little pig. It's a memorable logo and had RSO inside of it. So the late 1970s, RSO is dominating music, pop culture, raking in millions and millions of dollars. And of course, lots of bands wanted to be signed to RSO because it was just like printing money at that point. So 1979, a band sends their demo to RSO, and they get a letter back that says, "We have listened with careful consideration, but feel it is not suitable for us at present." This band took that rejection, went to a smaller, mostly a reggae label, which is weird because they're not a reggae band, called Island Records.
Yes, run by Chris Blackwell.
Right. Island made this group a superstar. This group made Island a power player. Talking about U2, and just one of those little bits of serendipity, and I don't know that U2 had any hard feelings about this, but in 1983, U2 released their quadruple platinum album, War, which has New Year's Day on it, and this song, Sunday Bloody Sunday.
Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
War and that song, that's what set U2 off into being megastars. 1983, that same year, RSO Records folded.
Folded?
Done.
I didn't realize that they went kaput that early. I thought
after the disco bust.
Yeah, I guess
they were the disco label.
They were sort of all in on disco, and then
when that went, they went with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, right as they are ending, U2 just began global domination.
You know, I don't understand why don't more. And I get RSO, like, why wouldn't they? They were dominating clearly with disco, like you said.
Oh, they did have Eric Clapton.
And they had Eric Clapton. Why wouldn't you want to diversify? Like,
because you were making so much money, and U2 would have been a great way to diversify. Because even when you hear early U2, I mean, it wasn't as polished and iconic as it became.
Now, right?
But you can still definitely hear it. It's not like
there's something there that you would go like, you know what? Yeah, they're not the same as most of our other artists, but let's try something different. Like, why do we have to be just that one thing?
Yeah. And you also had at the same time, the Police were starting to hit, like Roxanne came out in 79. Early U2 is not completely removed from the Police. You'd be like,
no,
this is a sound that's happening. You should get in on it.
Both punk-influenced sounds, yeah.
Yeah, you got to look toward the future, and labels don't always do that. Like this next label. We're talking about Millennium Records, which you've probably never heard of. Their biggest hit was the disco theme from Star Wars by an artist named Miko. Yeah,
and they had the strings going behind it.
So not the John Williams actual orchestral score. This was a cover of
melody.
They used the melody for the Star Wars Cantina Band theme. It was a disco version by Miko, hit number 1. Also, Millennium Records.
I'm laughing because I had the...
You have the 45?
I had the 45.
Of course you did. It's super catchy. I mean, it lends itself to disco. Also, Millennium Records had signed Joey Travolta, older brother of John. A lot of big artists on Millennium Records. In 1981, Millennium Records got a demo tape from an up-and-coming singer, a little dance pop singer, and they listened to it, and sent her a rejection letter. And this one was actually, at least had some kind of foresight. Jimmy Einer was the president of Millennium, and he sent the letter, and it said, "The direction is good, in my opinion. The only thing missing from this project is material." And it is so hilarious.
Oh my God.
It is so hilarious.
Why
he chose
would he
that
use that
word
word?
because the artist was Madonna. Here's a little bit of Material Girl.
Okay, the title was not written as a dig at Millennium Records, was it?
Madonna didn't write that song. I wonder now, did she choose to do that song because that was in the back of her mind? Oh, I don't have the material? I mean, she's been called the Material Girl for 40 plus years, and the specific rejection she got was, you don't have the material.
That can't be coincidence. There's no way she doesn't remember.
Oh, she knows. She definitely does, because in 2001, she took that rejection letter and put it up for auction at Sotheby's, along with the original demo tape.
Well, there you go. What did it go for?
I couldn't find what it went for, oddly. And interestingly, of course, the demo tape does not have Like a Virgin and Material Girl. It's not those songs. But it did have the songs Burning Up and Everybody, which were her first two singles on her first album. And again, Madonna's debut album that had Holiday, Borderline, Lucky Star came out in 1983, the same year that Millennium Records folded. 83 was a bad year for these labels that passed on future superstars.
Grand opening, grand closing. Wow.
There you go. Also, again, trying to be fair to people, Jimmy Einer, who passed on Madonna, he was very complimentary. He said, she's a good performer. Like, there's a future there. He goes, we're going to pass for now. Basically, he thought he would maybe get another chance.
They could come back around, right?
Come back, and then she wound
sort
up
of like the Browns.
Records.
Sort of like the Browns passing on Shador.
Kind of. But Jimmy Einer did all right. He wound up being the co-executive producer on the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, the Big Chill soundtrack, the Sister Act soundtrack, won 2 Oscars, bunch of Grammys. He did okay.
Yeah.
But
he did fine.
Could have signed Madonna and told her she didn't have the material.
I mean, maybe he can take some pride in. Maybe he can believe that. Well, I inspired her to do this, record this song, "Material Girl," and
she wanted to be called the Material Girl just to spite me all these years, even though she hates that name.
I want to be. You're right. Like, you want to be fair to these guys, but it's got to, beyond being fair to them, beyond the public and listening audiences being fair to them. For them, though, what does it feel like? I know
I passed on Madonna in 1981.
And we're just talking about a few artists, but the reality is this happens to the head of every label, even extremely successful labels.
Oh yeah,
today pass on people who become, big stars.
Oh, we're going to get to one a little bit later. The president of that label, who's a very famous person himself, called this one the biggest mistake of his life.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
All right, let's do it.
But so those will be fair too, because they're just trying to see what can I make work or what can we do. Sometimes they are not always so kind. Some can be real jerks. Missy Elliott, who is one of the most influential, groundbreaking, talented artists of the last 30 years as a singer, a rapper, a producer, a writer. She was rejected from a label because they told her she was too fat. She would never make it as a pop star because she was too fat. And to her credit, she has never said who it was that told her that.
Oh,
it was some.
Oh, that's interesting.
Some label executive. She just said she was told she was too fat. And this is one, and like you said, when you hear a demo from an artist who's starting out, they don't just come out of the gate sounding like what they do sound like. Like, her first single as an artist, remember this song, The Rain, Super Duper Fly?
Oh, Missy, try to maintain. I can't stand the rain.
How do you not hear there's something there that's new and different, and even if it doesn't become what it eventually became,
right? Even if
Missy and Timbaland,
the song that you hear isn't like a smash hit. It's one thing. It's easy, right? If you hear a smash hit song as a demo, you go like, great. But that whole point of being the head of a label, A&R, is to find something in the sound that you go like, there's something we can work with. That's how you scout talent.
Right. There's getting a hit song and there's investing in a talent. And when you know that she can do all the things she does, she can write and produce hits for other people, which of course Missy Elliott has done.
Right. And which is very valuable to a label as well.
Right. And she started out, and I don't know if this was just, I think this is when she went solo, but she was in a group called Sista that did backing vocals on Jodeci's second album. The talent was always there.
Yeah.
And then of course when she and Timbaland hooked up is when they started creating that sound. And by the time her solo album came out, they'd already produced Aaliyah's 1 in a Million record. it's so funny. Like how do you not hear? Oh, I've got something here. And this is an artist
And when
who
you're
was very excited about working with other artists. Like you could have a whole cottage industry just from signing this one person.
and your rejection is based purely on her appearance.
That she's too
and
fat,
not-
which is just somebody else that happened to Ed Sheeran.
Said he was too fat.
No, he was told he was slightly chubby
Too
and ginger.
redheaded?
Yeah, they said
They
slightly
did say
chubby
that?
and ginger.
They
and,
did.
and said he would not be a viable pop star.
Oh,
Viable is the word
man.
they used. But again, like Missy Elliott, how do you not hear the talent that he has? Whether you are an Ed Sheeran fan or not, there's no denying the man can
Man has
write and
talent,
produce
right.
a song. He can play. He can sing.
He knows a hook. He knows a pop.
Like Missy Elliott, he made songs for other people. You could have had this whole industry based off this one person.
Yeah.
If you had just invested in them.
They
And
really called him out for being ginger, huh?
called him out. They said he was, slightly chubby and ginger is the quote, and that he was not viable. I mean, that's just mean. You can
It's just mean, and you know what? You get what you get. That you can't feel sorry for those guys. Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't
you
need to.
don't.
We don't need to be fair to those people.
like at least RSO told you to not suitable for us at present.
Mhm.
That's a
That's a
business.
business.
That's a soft
That's a
let.
business decision, right? A bad one, but business decision.
Yeah. And some people maybe they don't get a bad rejection, but they get a lot of them. Linkin Park performed for over 40 executives in the industry. And then finally, the vice president of Warner Brothers, Jeff Blue, signed them. I think the 5th time they auditioned there. They over 40 rejections.
Hi, Jeff. It's us again.
Yeah, we're back again. I don't know if he's the one who heard them. Maybe it's like
Yeah.
maybe we'll get somebody else that's
Different
going to hear it.
executive, yeah.
And when he heard them, he heard something in like this song in the end.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, over 40 executives like, nah, that's not going to work. And then, of course, Hybrid Theory, Linkin Park's debut album. In the U.S., it's certified for 12 million units. It is the best-selling debut album of the 21st century.
Really?
Yeah, to find a better
Linkin
selling
Park?
debut album, you'd have to go back to Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
That
boy,
album.
boy, Jeff Blue, the bonus he got that year must have been.
He should have, because Linkin Park wasn't just popular and catchy. They connected with a whole generation of
Yeah.
people that still love them and love that album. That was a generational moment, and nobody else could hear it until Vice President of Warner Brothers, Jeff Blue, said, "Hey, these guys have got something."
There's a nice piece of trivia.
Yeah, the best.
I mean, this
selling
whole
debut of
episode
the
is filled
21st
with trivia, but
Yeah.
yes, the best-selling. Wow,
I wouldn't have guessed that would have been the album, but it was a
Would've
huge,
never guessed that.
huge moment. Speaking of best-selling artists, I'm not going to play any of his music, but Kanye rejected by a lot of labels,
Mhm.
even after he had already produced songs for Jay-Z, because they only wanted him as a producer. And they
Right, and that
thought,
was a
you are
big thing
never going
for
to be an
him.
artist.
Yeah.
On his original demo, the one he eventually got signed off of, it had the fully finished version of Jesus Walks on it. So all these labels heard it and were like, nah, nothing's going to come of that.
That's so weird.
And
Especially because that was a time. Well, you would have thought, especially if you have on your resume
I've produced for Jay-Z.
a producer
Which
for
is
Jay-Z
where he
and
wound up
produced hits
getting-
for Jay-Z.
He
Yeah.
got signed to Rockefeller, Jay-Z's label, on Def Jam. That's how he eventually got signed, because no other label would agree to let him be an artist.
Yeah.
And so good one on Def Jam for seeing that. This next one's the one we were talking about earlier. Def Jam didn't always get it right. In 2006, L.A. Reid, head of Def Jam, one of the most legendary, successful producers and labels. L.A. Reid and
This is-
Babyface were a two-man hit-making machine throughout most of the 90s. Then L.A. got into the business side and did really well with Def Jam. 2006, he said an artist came in and performed for him just at a piano. And he said it was like hearing Billy Joel and Elton John, that level of talent, but with a modern twist. And he signed her on the spot. And then she started putting her album together. 3 months later, he's like, this is not what I thought you were going to be, and dropped her. And he goes, a few months after that, she got signed again to another label, and she released this song, Just Dance, Lady Gaga.
Just dance, gonna be okay. Da-da-doo-doo, just dance. Da-da-doo-doo, da-da-doo-doo, just dance.
So he said she came in like white go-go boots and sat at the piano and just blew him away. And I'm sure she probably did something more
Right.
singer-songwritery, acoustic-y, and then she comes with Just Dance. And in 2006, 7, that's not what pop music sounded like at that time.
No, and I get it. So did L.A. Reid say that he wanted what she did when she came into his office?
he thought it was going to be more like maybe like an Alicia Keys, Norah Jones
Yeah.
kind of thing is
Right.
maybe what he thought he was getting. And then he gets this like turbo pop dance music, dropped her. And then Just Dance comes out, and he did an interview with Larry King in 2016, and he said, I heard the song, and I didn't want it to be a success. He's like, nah, that's not.
He's like, I don't want to root against anybody.
And he goes, and I
but-
just kept hearing it. He said the exact quote was, he called dropping Lady Gaga, he said he felt like the biggest failure in the world. And it was like the biggest mistake of his career.
Good on him for admitting it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you say. Like, there's a guy who had tremendous success and did find a lot of talent and did foster a lot of careers, but you can't get them all right. You're never going to get them all
No,
right.
and that's what he says. But I think his regret in it is not just obviously the money he would have made having Lady Gaga and all
Right.
that. I think as somebody who was an artist, who was talent, and then made a career of nurturing talent, you think, how did I not see that? Something that in hindsight
Right,
seems
what didn't
so
you-
obvious.
What weren't you listening to? What note did you not hear that should have been like, oh my God, I
That you-
can't believe
you-
she just did that?
You'd probably just question your instincts, I think, to think, how did I hear early Lady Gaga and think, nah. And in the moment, like I said, I mean, we were working together when Just Dance and Poker Face came out.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
It changed things, man.
it did. That's one of those things to Lady Gaga's credit. Before her, not much really sounded like that on the radio. And then within a year, everything sounded like that. And she's still around, still headlining Coachella. She's doing all right.
It's worked out for both of them, but I get why L.A. Reid, that one just kind of
It bugs
sticks in his craw a little bit.
Like I should have seen what that was.
Boy, that was an old timey. Every now and then I catch myself saying some things. I'm like, how freaking old are you? and I then I see Wild laughing in the corner, like sticks in my craw. What? I'm not even from the South. What the? Okay.
I mean, I'm used to hearing that because I grew up around old people in West Virginia.
Sure.
But yeah.
I don't know. I watched too many movies.
So most of the Beatles are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. U2 is in. Madonna's in. Missy Elliott just got in recently.
Mm-hmm.
Linkin Park will probably get in because your eligibility is 25 years after your first release.
Yeah.
Gaga, so her first album came out in 2008.
She's got a while before it's going to be years.
Closer than you think, which really upsets me that we're getting close. Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet,
so
but so the Rock Hall of Fame.
yes, we got to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees were announced. I'm fairly happy with the class.
Pretty happy. I didn't know if Cyndi Lauper would get in or not. I know she's very pop.
Very cool that
Seemed like
Cyndi
a
got
long
in.
shot. I'm glad she got in.
Cyndi got in. Mariah didn't.
Mariah did
We
not.
knew it was
Just
going to be
dumb.
just one of them, right? But maybe you would have. I think the handicap would have been that Mariah gets in and Cyndi would get in later. But they went with Cyndi first.
She's been waiting longer.
Yeah.
Bad Company got in. Chubby Checker did get in.
I was a little surprised by Bad Company and Chubby Checker,
Little
not by
surprised.
Outkast. I knew that was.
Soundgarden. I think is long overdue. Should
Yep,
have been in. White Stripes.
Soundgarden should
We
have
knew
been.
that was going to happen. They love Jack White. Oasis did not get in. Fish did not get in, which is kind of surprising because they won the fan vote by a huge margin. I guess
They just figures
that doesn't matter. There's no point in voting in the fan vote because
Yeah, I thought the fan vote. Well, it
doesn't
person
mean you
always
get
gets
in. I think the fan vote counts as like a full vote from like one of their board.
Got it.
But I guess just nobody else voted for Fish.
Huh. Oh well.
But you were
Yeah.
upset because the Black Crowes did not get in.
I was very, very upset. I can't remember exactly what my declaration was when we announced the nominations, but I said if they don't get in, I'm going to be really upset. I'm not as upset as I thought I was going to be. And here's the reason why. This was the first year they were nominated. Now, they've been eligible, I think, for like
The
5 or
first
6
album
years.
came out in 1990, so they've been eligible for 10 years.
Right. So they've been eligible for a while, but this is their first nomination. I just looked back at a few other artists who were eligible but didn't get nominated for 7 or 8 years, and very few of them get in on their first nomination. It's usually the second or third nomination, and I think in the case of Tribe Called Quest was even more than that. I think they were nominated 4 times.
And then there was Chic, got nominated 11 times and never got in.
and never got in.
And they
And-
finally inducted Nile Rodgers as a producer, as like musical excellence.
right.
Because they have like
Which-
some side categories. Like Salt and Peppa did get in this
Right.
year, but not directly as performers. They got in as an influence, which is
I
sort of
think
a cheap way around
it's
it.
kind of a cheat. And it was the same thing, by the way. And I was thankful I was there the night that Nile Rodgers got his honor, and it was bittersweet. I felt like, okay, this is cool that they're recognizing him, but that whole group should be in. And it made me feel like, all right, now they've done this for him, so they're not going to even consider Chic.
They
as a
haven't been
group.
nominated since.
Right.
Like, well, we did that. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't.
Yeah, you did.
Honestly, you could give him both. As a producer, he should be in the Rock Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Chic as a group should have gotten in.
Right.
And 11 nominations. Come on now. Like,
It's just
what are you doing?
ridiculous. So, look, I fully expect that the Black Crowes will be nominated.
A few more
The
times.
Black Crowes will be nominated next year, and they will get in.
Radiohead took a couple of nominations, and I thought they were
Right, and that's
It
also
took a few years to nominate, a few nominations to get in, and I thought they were a sure thing.
that's
They
the other
were-
one I looked up. The two that gave me some hope were Mary J. Blige and Radiohead, and I was like, all right, I could see them viewing the Black Crowes in kind of the same way. So
Well, and they're still
it'll happen.
with Cyndi Lauper getting in the last few years. Def Leppard, Duran Duran, Pat Benatar, they're playing catch up with the 80s because they spent so many years just giving everybody in the 60s an induction. And then still Chubby Checker. They'll eventually get to the 90s, and then we'll, I mean, this year, artists who released their first album in 2000 are eligible, so we're hitting the 21st century now.
Good for and also really good for Chubby Checker. I was happy for him. It just
And he's
felt
still
like,
alive to appreciate it.
Exactly, because it felt like that was going to be one of those where he ends up getting a posthumous. And you're like, no, it's cool that he
Like
got
Donna
in.
Summer did. They nominated her a bunch of times and didn't put her in until after she died. I'm like,
Yeah.
you messed up. You
Yeah.
messed up there.
Exactly. So good on the Hall. We'll get you next year, Crows. Yeah, that's gonna do it for us this week. By the way, big if you're in the LA area and you're going to Beach Life Festival, it's gonna be awesome. Don't ask me who's headlining. I don't know.
Hey, is this the one with Lenny Kravitz?
Yes, Lenny
and-
Kravitz is headlining Friday night. Sublime
Sublime.
and the Pretenders
Yeah.
on Saturday. Beach Boys and somebody else Sunday. I usually don't make it to Sunday. I'm just tired. Tired.
Oh, because you're an
I'm
old
sitting
man that
around
says
my-
things like stuck in my craw. That's
Yeah.
how we know you got to get home and get to bed.
Exactly. On that note, I'm going to go take a nap. That is going to do it for us on Get to the Hook. We will see you next time.